Hi, how are you doing? Today we're doing a video I did last year and I really enjoyed doing, so I thought I'd bring it back this year for this year's end of year content, and that's to rank all the movies that came out this year that I also watched this year, obviously. Now, last year I had a lot of movies to talk about. This year I only saw 24 of the new releases that came out this year, and like none of the really popular ones. I mean, I watched a couple of like really popular ones, but like I missed out on a lot of movies that came out this year. I don't know why, but I just like didn't really feel the enthusiasm towards movie releases this year. I also just like in general watched less movies than I watched last year, so like in 2022. So that also of course affects my numbers, but like I don't know. I feel like the only movies that I remember coming out this year that I was excited about were Barbie and the Hours movie. I like that's not a good representation of the year. Oh, and the Marvels, but I have to wait till that drops on Disney Plus. I'm watching that as soon as it does that. But like that's the only movies that I remember like actually being excited for coming out. And like obviously there's a lot of great movies that came out this year that I can believe that I haven't watched yet. And I'm definitely gonna make a priority in 2024. But I only have 24 movies to talk to you about this time around. I only liked a couple of them. I'm gonna be honest. Like, if I'm looking at my top 5, I only care about 2 of them. Which sounds mean, but it's the truth. Like, generally, my top 10 is mostly made out of 3-star movies. So, I don't know. I did watch some new releases, but apparently not the good ones. So definitely after this video, feel free to like leave a bunch of recommendations for movies that came out in this past year because I need them. And yeah, let's just get started. We're going from my least favorite to my favorite. So starting on place 24, we have Barbie, Skipper, and the Big Babysitter Adventure. Now, I'm not gonna lie, I watched this very early on in the year and I have absolutely no memory of it. Like, I barely remember anything about it. Like, I'm looking at the Letterboxd page and I do not remember a whole lot. Let's check my review. I do remember kind of looking forward to this movie because it followed Skipper and I do really like Skipper as a character. She's Barbie's sister, the oldest of the Barbie is the oldest, but like the oldest of the siblings. So I was like, you know, not over the moon excited. Like, I wasn't highly anticipated this movie, but I was intrigued to watch it because of that. But I just really didn't like this movie. I thought it was very unrealistic and I rolled my eyes at a lot of the things happening in this. And I know like Barbie movies are like on a different level of realism, but I just did not connect with this one. And then next on the list is One True Loves. I haven't read the book. I'm gonna say that. So like none of these opinions are based on the book, but I did not like this movie. And honestly, I always pick up like I always start watching movies like this because I think the idea of it is so interesting. There's a lot of movies where it's kind of like two different kind of love stories going on because of like different timelines or either like a love triangle or like whatever it is. And my problem always with these kind of movies is that to me they sound interesting. They get me every time. But what almost always ends up happening is that one romance is clearly superior over the other, as in the actors have more chemistry, the characters fit better together, whatever it may be, but that romance is not the one that they end up going with. Or the other problem is that every character is just so unlikable that you just are like, fuck them all. And somehow this movie managed to do both. And next we have Longest Third Date, which again is one that I watched very early on in the year. It's a documentary and it was really boring. Like, yes, so this is about 2 people who met on a dating app and then decided for that 3rd date to like go on a vacation together, but like a couple of days in their stay the pandemic hit and everything was on lockdown and they could not return home, and so they spend up like months in this place very unintentionally, like barely knowing each other and like having to form this bond. And like, yes, that is such a wild story. Like, I cannot imagine that, and I'm sure that if you tell it to your friends it's always a fun ass time, but as a documentary, there was just nothing to say. Another one that has completely left my memory at this point is The Perfect Find. This is a bit more of a recent watch. I didn't completely hate this, but it's just that I never really got on board with the romance or either of the characters. And this is a rom-com, basically. Then next, to no one's surprise, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. Although some of you might be surprised, and it is like technically like higher up. It's not high up at all, but you know, I feel like a lot of people would place this much lower as like their least favorite of the year. But yeah, this is the first project in phase 4 where I genuinely have been like, this is not good. Because I feel like that's a big complaint about phase 4, is that it is not good. And even though like the quality of project has been kind of like varying, I do think I had a enjoyable enough time with everything. And then like, for example, What If season 1 I didn't like, but I feel like that was more me having this different expectations for what that show could be, and like wanting different things out of it than it was meant to deliver. So then when I got to Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and I genuinely just hated my time watching it. I did not like it at all. I felt bad. I genuinely did, because I feel like I'm one of the very few remaining people who still left out hope for things for the MCU, but like, this isn't good. Then next we have The Devil on Trial, which is another documentary, and I don't know, this one just didn't really do anything much for me. I did watch this a couple of weeks after I watched the Conjuring The Devil Made Me Do It, which is about the same case. Of course, that's heavily fictionalized and made into a horror movie, but I watched that movie, and then a couple of weeks after that I watched this documentary, which is, like I said, it's about the same case. So I did think that was interesting to kind of directly see what kind of that movie like draws from and stuff like that. I think it was interesting for that spot. And next we have Your Place or Mine, which is the first 2023 release I watched this year. And this is just like a case of no chemistry between the actors, which is a shame because I like the plot of this movie. I do. I think the concept of it is great, but they have no chemistry together, and like the characters spend like 5 minutes of total screen time together in this entire movie, which also just makes it feel a bit weird. Next we have The Outlaws, which again is a premise that sounded really interesting to me, and I thought was really gonna be fun, especially with also like the cast and everything, but it just was really lame. And I don't know how they did it, because it is such a ridiculous plot, like such a ridiculous premise, that I feel like it's so difficult to like be able to execute it without at least a little bit of fun of it in it. But like they managed to do that. I don't know how they did that. Then apparently controversial opinion, because I've seen a lot of people like rave about this, and that's Scream 6. I really don't like it. I'm sorry. I think this is the second worst Scream movie, I think. Yeah, I think everything that this movie does has been done before in other movies in the franchise, and they've done it so much better. Another really unpopular opinion, because we love those, is Nimona. I didn't like this movie. I'm so sorry. Which is a shame, because I read the graphic novel like ages ago, back when it first came out, and I've been very excited for this movie adaptation ever since, because I feel like back then there were already like rumblings of an adaptation going on. This took a very long time to be made. It was shopped around and like went from different places, and then on top of that, Eugene Lee Yang is in this, and I love the Try Guys. So that made me even more excited, and I just didn't like this movie. I thought it was so lame. I didn't like the animation, and it felt like the heart was missing. And it seems like we're staying in unpopular opinion central, because next on the list is The Little Mermaid, and I do have to say Halle Bailey was the best part of this movie. Like, she is a real life Disney princess. Like, she managed to portray Ariel so beautifully, and I also really like Prince Eric. I think their relationship was really well done throughout the movie. I think they have good chemistry together, but like everything, literally everything else about this movie sucks. Next, we have Choose Love, a movie that definitely would have been way lower on the list if it wasn't an interactive one, because I really love the interactive element to it. This is another one that kind of suffers, because it has 3 storylines, like 3 potential love interests that you can choose between, and this definitely suffers from what I mentioned with One True Lives, where there's one very superior option. Like, the other 2 are barely even a thought in your mind. Next up we have Knock at the Cabin, which again didn't read the book. I desperately want to now after watching this movie though. Like, I was watching this movie and like reading reviews on it and seeing other people's thoughts on it. I think a lot of the problems I had with this would be solved within the book, just based on what people are saying. So I am very intrigued to read that, but I don't know whenever that's gonna happen. I just wasn't the biggest fan of this movie. I had like a fun enough. I do think it was engaging enough for most of it, but the ending just kind of dumped it down for me a little bit, because I just felt like it answered too much. And next, another documentary, Ice Cold Murder Coffee and Jessica Wongso, which I don't know why I decided to watch this, but Netflix recommended it to me, and I read like the little description, and I thought it sounded interesting. I had never heard of this case before, and watching this documentary was really interesting as well, because I liked the way it kind of was framed, where in the beginning of this, you're like why are we making a documentary? So why was this such a big case? Because it seemed so straightforward. Then you get into the court trial and different things start popping up and different evidences and questions being raised, and you're like, oh shit, this woman might be in prison while she doesn't deserve it. I think that was really interesting. But something that kept me from putting this any higher is that there's just a lot of like side tangents within this documentary, and like we're going on to things that do not matter. Then next I watched Murder Mystery 2, which I actually had a lot more fun with than I expected. I think the key to watching these movies is not taking them seriously, because these movies definitely don't take themselves seriously either, and I thought this was a lot of fun. I thought it was much more funny than the first one. I liked that it was kind of more of an action movie inspired plot than just like a straight mystery like the first one was. Then next I watched Love at First Sight, which I have read the book for and I remember nothing of. But I feel like this movie, as much as I liked it, and I do think it hit the emotional snare that it was supposed to towards the ending, I feel like this is gonna have kind of like a similar fate to the book, as in I might not forget completely that I ever watched this, but I do think like the plot of it isn't not super memorable, but it is a nice enough coming of age kind of rom-com. Then next we have You're So Not Invited to My Bat Mitzvah, which is a very typical teen like friendship movie, but I thought it was really fun. Then we have the Other Zoey, which again, not a good movie, but I had so much fun watching this. This actually does do a great job at portraying a love triangle. I believed every second of it. I thought the romance in this was actually really cute, and the reason why this ended up being rated so highly for me, because that was just adorable and I love watching it, and like the actors had great chemistry together. Next we have Five Nights at Freddy's, which I also put higher than I expected. Like honestly, I didn't expect to enjoy this as much as I did, but I had such a fun time watching it. And even though this movie was not scary at all, like if you're going into this for the scare factors, going in this not knowing anything about FNAF, I also don't think I'll have a fun time watching it. But I do genuinely hope this will turn into a franchise, because I feel like if it has more time to build the story and therefore also be able to go more in depth in the scares, I feel like it would be a great franchise. And next, another movie that took me by surprise is EXmas. This I was intrigued in because the premise sounded interesting, but I kind of was just expecting like a middle of the road cheesy Christmas movie, and it definitely isn't anything like out there, especially as I was still cheesy Christmas movie, but it's a blast to watch. I really liked them in couple. I thought they had a lot of chemistry together. I love the family in this. I thought it was just like so wacky and fun, and I overall just had a blast watching it. Then the Super Mario Bros. Movie I also really enjoyed. This is another one where I don't think like it's peak cinema. I like the animation, I like references to the games, and within this as well, I think they did a great job kind of like creating this world and adapting the games, I guess. But I had so much fun watching this movie. Like, yeah, this is just pure enjoyment. Then next you have Louis Tomlinson, All of Those Voices, which is Louis' documentary. And you know, I'm a Louis girly, so like of course I love my time watching this, but it wasn't like my favorite. I do feel like at times it kind of was a bit long. It could have been a bit short, like cut down, because it just went on and on like the same thing. I'm like, we get it, and it got a bit boring at times. But overall, I do think that if you are a Louis fan, or even just a One Direction fan, I do recommend this. Then next we have Red, White and Royal Blue, which I just I ate up. I know this is not a good movie. This is not even a good adaptation of the book, which again I also read that when it came out, but I loved it so much. Like I immediately wanted to rewatch it upon watching. Like I finished it and I almost wanted to click replay. I didn't, but I never had that feeling before movies. I'm not like a big immediate rewatcher when it comes to movies, but this almost happened. Next, my favorite movie of the year that came out this year is Bottoms, which again was a surprise to me, because if it wasn't for like the very big hype around this movie, I don't think I would have, like this would have even come across my radar. But it's so good. It's so funny. It's just like right up my alley as well, and I love it. And even though I say there was a big hype around it, it's mainly around like creators I specifically follow that were very hyped for this movie. I got to watch it early and like I've sparked a love for it, but I feel like it hasn't gotten like the mass appeal that it should have, because it's so good. It's so gay as well. I love it. And yeah, that was everything for this video. I think this will end up longer than last year's, even though I talked about less movies, but I feel like I went more in depth with these than I did last year, but who knows. There's timestamps in the description in case you haven't figured that out yet. And yeah, like I said in the beginning, let me know in the comments some of your favorite movies that came out this year, because I need the recs. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye. Here I am again, the same old situation. What does the guy think?
have to be so complicated. Should've played